Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Kiff Says, a place where we break down the legal aspects of your creative business and I try to convince you that the law doesn't have to equal scary. Today, I want to tackle some legalese, which I know is probably going to turn you running the opposite direction. What I'd like to do is help break down some of that legal boilerplate that's at the end of every contract you sign. Earlier this week, I was reading a book which is called A Sense of Style by Steven Pinker, and in it he quotes Alan Friedman. What distinguishes legal boilerplate is its combination of archaic terminology and frenzied verbosity, as though it were written by a medieval scribe on crack. I found this to be a hilarious and very accurate representation of what a lot of this legalese is like. And so what I'd like to do is try to pull back the curtain as to what maybe that medieval scribe was thinking when he crafted some of that legalese. First boilerplate clause you might come across in your contract is the assignment clause. Now this is just an example of what an assignment clause could look like. What an assignment clause is there for is to figure out who can substitute for you or for the other party that you're having the contract with if something happens during the course of the contract. I would say for a lot of creative business owners, this comes up when either you start off the contract as a sole proprietor and then decide for legal or tax reasons to become an LLC or an S corporation, and so you want to assign this contract to your new business entity. It could happen on the other side if they are bought out by someone, or if they merge with someone, or maybe the same thing, they're a sole proprietor and they become an LLC or a corporation. So this clause just basically explains how that procedure can happen, if it can happen, and what it looks like. And so this assignment clause basically says that you have to have prior written consent to assign the contract to someone else, and that it cannot be unreasonably withheld or delayed. So for example, if you become a LLC from a sole proprietor and basically you're continuing to run your business the same, it would be probably unreasonable for them to withhold prior written consent. This clause goes along, the Successors and Assigns clause goes along with the assignment clause, and basically it is here to outline that if for whatever reason someone stands in your shoes, either because unfortunately you pass away and your estate is closing up things, or if you are able to assign the contract to someone else, that these people are still held to the terms of the contract. A lot of contracts contain a boilerplate clause for attorney's fees, and this clause is there to basically reward, I guess is a good word, the person who wins any sort of dispute over the contract attorney's fees. So the losing party in this dispute would be required to pay the winning party's costs and attorney's fees. The next two clauses, the governing law and the venue clause, kind of go hand in hand. And this basically says what state laws will be used to determine how we read this contract. And that's because there are still some variations state to state in how these things can be done. This goes along with the choice of venue clause. Normally, the states in the governing law and the choice of venue are going to be the same. And it basically says that if you need to sue over this contract, whatever location is named in this choice of venue clause is the only place that you can sue. Another clause that you'll commonly see is the entire agreement clause. And it basically says that everything within the four corners of this contract, only what's on this piece of paper, is what our deal is. Nothing we talked about on the phone, nothing we talked about in emails, nothing we talked about in person, none of that is our deal. Only what is the deal is what is on this specific piece of paper. And so that's where you need to very clearly make sure that what you think the deal is matches up with this piece of paper, because if it's not on the contract, if it's not in what they call the four corners of the contract, then this clause means that it's not part of your contract. Often going hand in hand with that is a written modification clause, which basically states that any changes to this contract cannot be done verbally. It must be done in writing and signed by both of you. Notices clauses still tend to be pretty traditional and require notification via certified or registered mail or some sort of overnight delivery service. You'll occasionally see a fax still in there. Some clauses now are allowing for email. However, the tricky thing with email is there's no way to confirm that it was sent or received. And so that's why lawyers tend to stick to something a little more traditional where we've got some sort of proof of delivery and service. And basically what this notice clause is if for whatever reason you need to inform the other party that they're not living up to their agreement, that you need to make a change, that maybe you need to assign, any of those kinds of things, this notices provision lays out how you are supposed to do that so you do it properly. The severability clause is in a lot of the boilerplate clauses at the end of your contract, and it basically says that if for whatever reason anything that's been written in this contract when you're fighting over it in a court is determined to be illegal, all that's going to happen is the judge is going to kind of, with a pen, draw through those lines of the contract that are determined to be illegal, and the rest of the contract stands. So anything that is illegal just gets crossed out, but the rest of your contract still stands and is valid. The final clause that you might come across is a waiver clause. And this clause is in there because sometimes you'll say to the other party when you're going back and forth, oh, it's okay that you didn't do that. Oh, it's okay, you can pay me 2 days late. Oh, it's okay if the deliverables come in a week late. Oh, it's okay if you do, something that the contract says is not okay. And this clause is in there to say that just because you say it's okay once doesn't mean you have to say it's okay again, and doesn't mean that the contract changes and all of those things go out the window. So I hope that makes you a little more confident the next time you encounter some of that legalese, some of that boilerplate language at the end of your contract. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you shared it with your network. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.